Okay, let me brace for this. Miami Heat fans, Miami Heat, the Jimmy Butler era is coming to a close. Look, I know it's hard to see your fan favorite, the leader, the linchpin, the guy who has brought you to that special place of the NBA Finals twice. Twice. He is everything you want about Heat culture. He has been the culture setter. He's been the flagship. He has been the center point on what has been a dominant Miami Heat era. If you're getting to the NBA Finals twice in the span of about 5 years, you are dominating, period. They've upset teams constantly, especially the Boston Celtics, and they've been a scary team, an absolute nightmare for teams throughout the playoffs, throughout this run. But I remember I forget the name of the commentator, but he made this comment a long time ago, and it's never left me. He said it's always better to sell a year too soon than a year too late. And now you have teams that have to make hard choices. And right now you have a 34-year-old Jimmy Butler who has always been injury prone, but before has justified it with great showings in the playoffs. He always seems to be ready just in time for the playoffs. So he's able to contribute at a high level and kind of be that takeover guy that transforms, right? Playoff mode was 100% real. I don't think we've seen anybody go into playoff mode the way that Jimmy Butler did outside of maybe like a Rajon Rondo back in the day. I know LeBron has his own and other guys like Davion Mitchell and Jamal Murray, but the huge jump from the regular season to the playoffs, no one has really shown us that type of a jump outside of maybe a Rajon Rondo, where he went from okay, he's a solid NBA point guard to all of a sudden he looks like a superstar. He's averaging a triple double, right? 16 points, 12 rebounds, 13 assists, 2 to 3 steals on good efficiency. Like it's just crazy. And Jimmy Butler was that dude, and he's been that dude. And I think he still has some of that in him. But at 34 years old, we have to ask ourselves, how much more of that does he have in him to justify being absent throughout the regular season? When the regular season is becoming more and more valuable, as you saw with the Clippers and other teams. If you are struggling throughout the regular season, you are going to struggle to get the seeding you need to progress in the playoffs. And I know as a Miami Heat fan, you're probably still betting on like, hey man, we've been a number 8 seed and we've still done it. We've still done it and got to the finals. You're right. But how much more of that can you bank on with Jimmy Butler? How much more of that can you really depend upon? Remember, it tends to be better to sell a year early than a year late. Because by the time that he's looking at that option, right? That 50 plus $1 million option that he has in the year 2025, 26. He's only going to turn that down if he's getting more or he's getting that across the board. And I know that for a lot of us, I'm a loyal guy. I would say he's worth it. He's gotten us there, and let's just sign him and just go off into the future, right? See how it rolls out. But the reality is, you also still have Bam Adebayo. You also have Jaime Jaquez. And these two individuals look like the future of what this team is going to be. Now you got other ancillary, pieces to kind of help support. You got Terry Rozier, and you still got everybody that fills in Tyler Hero, and he had a pretty good play in showing, and solid guys. But when you look at this roster, you're beginning to see that if they're really going to remain competitive, they're going to have to put together a team that can build the type of continuity they need to really be consistent and know what you're going to get by the time you get to the playoffs. Because the reality is, Jimmy Butler's not going to get younger. Those knees are not going to get any younger. And if anything, we've seen, especially with D Wade, right? When the knees start going, they go. And they tend to fall off a cliff. And that is a foreboding type of analogy when you look at D Wade's career that has to be kept in mind. The Miami Heat eventually let him go on to Cleveland, and then he eventually ended up in Chicago, right? You know, um, but it's to say that they understand it as well, which is why I said at the beginning the era is probably coming to an end. Now they'll let Jimmy Butler be around next season. Let him be angry. Let him be fiery. Let him have that chip on his shoulder. Have a great season and find an opportunity to get his money elsewhere. Maybe somebody else will pick up, his salary. Team like Charlotte, right, who needs that type of leader to galvanize everyone, right? There's plenty of teams who could use him, even if it's just for a couple seasons, right? Let them go ahead and do it. Let them go ahead and do it. Maybe Washington could use him. Maybe it's Utah. Maybe it's I don't know. I don't know. But it sure as hell is not Miami because Miami has a bunch of wing guys and they got a bunch of up and coming guys who need to know what their place is on this team, and they can't do that with a lingering superstar who's kind of falling from his stardom and doesn't really play often enough for you to get comfortable and know how to play with him. And so you end up taking on a bigger role while he's out for half the season, only to have your role diminished and you go back to the bench. Jaime Jaquez, as soon as Jimmy Butler gets back, but then he's not really the superstar he used to be. So then you're wondering, like, well, what are we doing here? Now I'm sure they all love each other, but at the end of the day, you're looking at like, yo, is this really what we're trying to make space for? Which is why I said the era is likely coming to an end. Now, when you look at this team, they also have some major holes that they need to fill. Kyle Lowry is, well, he's at the end of his run. Kyle Lowry, he's gone. He went to Philly. They have no point guard. They just don't. They just don't. And there's some guys in the draft, but there's nobody in the draft that you're looking at expecting to come in and actually be that starter from day one. I don't necessarily see too many guys in free agency. Maybe a Tyus Jones, but he's an average to below average NBA point guard or solid at best. Right? They've got some holes. Center. Can you continue to start Bam Adebayo at center? Now I know, look, hey, I love Nikola Jovic as much as anybody, but he's 20 years old. Yes, he's getting his body stronger. 6'10", he can shoot the ball, do some things, but I don't think that's the answer. You need another big that can defend the rim and allow Bam to shift more into that power forward role, especially as the league is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Can you really go up against a Philly and a Milwaukee and a New York, right? Year after year after year as they continue to pack on size, Cleveland and Orlando, right? This is in your own backyard, right? Now even Atlanta has a Clint Capella and James Johnson, right? 6'10", athletic forward playing in the front court, right? Like you need more size. So they've got some holes to fill. So when they think about what they're going to do with that money, that 40 to 50 million a year, right? They have to really start thinking about, can they bring him back? And I don't think so. But hey, Miami Heat fans, you may not agree, or you might agree. But as always, smash the like button, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications, share it with your friends, chop it up, and get at me in the comment section because you know we're going to chop it up there. Peace.